Well, you'll see that as we've refurbished these rooms, we've put the new names for each room on the door. This is the motor room, and what you will see in here is intended as my tribute to my father. In fact, there is still some work to do in this room, but what you see very much reflects my father's interest, not just in old cars, but transport generally. So we've got aviation and shipping represented here. Let me just take you around the room. At first glance, you see what appears to be a stripy wallpaper, but actually the lighter stripes are the tread patterns from the tyres of vintage cars, which prompts me to mention this book, which is produced by Vintage Tyre Supplies, a company I have an interest in and is based at Beaulieu. And in this book are the tread patterns for many old tyres, including the two that I've used in this wallpaper. So there's the chevron pattern, which you will see on several of our veteran cars in the Motor Museum. And also, if I can find it, this one, the F4. And so I made these up into a continuous pattern, and these have formed the backdrop for the room and the motoring theme. So just going around the walls here. So this first painting is a splendid original by an American illustrator called Peter Helk, who was actually born in 1893, died in 1988, and he specialised in depicting motor racing. And this is particularly nice because he's written at the bottom, "To the Montagu Motor Museum from the artist Peter Helk." So I don't quite know how my father came to know him, but I just think it's a wonderful example of capturing the speed and excitement of an early race meeting. So just moving round, what I am trying to create in this room is an imaginary bachelor room that my father might have had. In fact, this wasn't his bedroom, but this was his bed. As I say, I'm sort of imagining it as he might have had it as a young man. So just going around here, I've got a selection of pictures which all sort of have a connection with him. Perhaps the best one to start with is this hand-cut silhouette, which was him as a young boy. We've actually got other members of the family done in the same way. This is an early powerboat, the Napier II, which my grandfather co-owned with Lionel de Rothschild at Exbury, and they raced that in the Solent quite successfly. On this side, my father's beloved Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost. That is a sketch by John Ward, which was used in the family portrait depicting us on the lawn in the winter in 1979. That hangs in another of the rooms. Over here we have a cartoon reflecting the time when my father was chairman of English Heritage. He's seen in that same car again, the Silver Ghost. Stonehenge was and still is one of English Heritage's most important properties. My father had to deal with various issues there, including the sort of midsummer solstice gatherings, which tended to draw a lot of hippies. And so that's sort of what this is showing. And in fact, the caption here says, well, my father says, "When you've got a minute," sort of driving towards them. And these two hippies here say, "Not one to break up the party." So anyway, it's all good humoured. He didn't actually drive his car to Stonehenge. This is a sketch by the celebrated artist Stanley Spencer for a painting he later produced called The Garage. My father actually sold the original, but we kept this sketch, which is rather nice. So this picture tells a story. It's by the celebrated artist Patrick Proctor, who painted the definitive portrait of my father that hangs in the front hall. Now this picture, which is a watercolour, used to hang at the beach house, which was appropriate because it depicts two people who stayed as my father's guests at his beach house. These are three members of the Rolling Stones. Mick Jagger on the left, who stayed at the beach house with Marianne Faithfull after they had completed some very difficult court case and wanted to escape from the press. The other two are, I think, Brian Jones and Keith Richards, but I'm not 100% sure. However, what one is in no doubt about it is the additional sort of flower power surroundings that the artist has put around them. So it's very much a piece of its time and recalls the days when my father had many celebrities to stay here at Beaulieu. These two pictures are both by the cartoon artist Thelwell, who produced so much wonderful work in the 1960s and 70s. Now this top one, I think appeared on the cover of Punch magazine, and clearly the idea was to depict the growth of the stately home industry and the success of some stately homes in drawing huge numbers of people. What I think happened was that after this was published, my father approached the artist and bought the original. He then had some of the labels above the shoots changed to reflect what was at Beaulieu, and then had this printed as his Christmas card for 1 year. So going around, we have Motor Museum, which clearly is a Beaulieu thing. Fairground, well, we sometimes had a visiting fair, but not always. Model railway, we definitely had a model railway. Cafeteria, souvenir shop, gatehouse, all things that you could see at Beaulieu. And of course, it's a bit of fun. And like all stately homeowners, every penny and pound that we can generate goes back into looking after the place. But, you know, perhaps in some people's eyes, the perception was that we were just raking it in, and that rather confirms that view. Below is an illustration which we commissioned, and this was used as the artwork on the Beaulieu poster in the late 1960s, and really presents a sort of condensed view of everything there is to see, both at Beaulieu and at Beaulieu. So, of course, the house, interestingly, the locomotive Stowe, which used to be in the grounds as a static exhibit, cars from the museum, New Forest ponies, and then and a go-kart, because we had a go-kart track, and then moving down the Beaulieu River to Beaulieu, an imaginary ship there, as there would have been once, a cruise ship, and a larger-than-life Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost. So this is a bit of a curiosity, but ideal for this room. These are castings of my father's actual hands, which were, I think, done by a stallholder at our auto jumble. And the hands are holding the steering wheel of an E-Type Jag, and I'm not sure this is off an E-Type, but it's off a Jaguar. My father wrote many motoring books, but the one that was most successful and was reprinted with revisions more than any other was his book about Jaguar. So this is particularly appropriate to have. He was a Jaguar driver himself at one time, but then he preferred the Daimler option later on, and they are the cars that I best remember him driving around in. So coming around to this side of the room, we have another great motoring picture by the very well-known motoring artist Roy Knockolds, a great picture from 1933. And then moving on, we have the original watercolour of my grandfather, John Montagu, by the artist whose actual name was Leslie Ward, but who always signed his paintings Spy. And these appeared regularly in the magazine Vanity Fair, and many well-known people of the time appeared, and fortunately we have the original. The one on the other side is of my great-grandfather Henry, who also appeared. I don't know if this was for Vanity Fair or another magazine, not the same artist, but also a sort of magazine portrait which appeared probably in the 1890s, around that time. So in creating this room, we had fun creating one or two new things. For example, these replica car horns have been converted to lamps by taking the rubber horn off the top, the rubber bulb, and replacing it with a light bulb and this shade that is sort of reminiscent of the rubber bulb. Just a bit of fun, really. We mustn't forget this lamp up here. This actually used to hang in my bedroom as a child, and I don't know if it's based on a particular airship, but definitely dates from the great sort of airship period. So it's, I would think, probably pre-First World War or maybe 1920s, but it's a fun thing. So moving around the room, other bits of automobilia. These Lalique swallows, which are not car mascots, but not dissimilar to the ones that were made to go on cars. And in the National Motor Museum, we have a splendid collection of Lalique mascots for you to see. This model of a 1920s Mercedes sports car, which he was presented by the company. And this French poster in which my father believes the man on the back is a caricature of the Prince of Wales, later Edward VII, who was known to be a car enthusiast. And indeed, my grandfather took him for his first drive in a car. And now let me show you what's in the bookcase, because everything here has a connection to my father. The cars at the top were ones that he just acquired through the years or was given. They're not a series or a set at all. I mean, this we think may be Indian. It's actually a cigarette box, but just, you know, a bit of fun. This is actually, I don't know how well it works, a teapot. And there is the spout. I've never tried it. Some of these others just were always on the bookshelf in his library, and I remember playing with some of these as a child. These two are rather more recent, made of aluminium, very nicely made. And then underneath we have books that either he wrote or reflect some interest in his life. So these are all books that were published in his name or under the Beaulieu name, including the Encyclopedia of the Automobile, which was a great success in its day, but lots of books about motoring and some about other subjects, books about Beaulieu, and then we really move on to books that reflect his interests, which were many. History books, music, opera, Nelson, maritime history, the New Forest, travel, Peking to Paris. Well, he drove from Peking to Paris on a car rally. Bluebird. This is a partial run of the Veteran and Vintage magazine, which he founded and edited. Travel books, a series by our cousin, Gerald Cubitt, who is a wonderful wildlife photographer. English heritage, buildings, gardens, shooting, game, the countryside, and let's not forget, he loved his food. And this is just a small selection of his many cookery books. He did cook himself sometimes, but he also had a cook and would give her quite often the recipes and say, you know, can you make that? So this, although this is a fraction of his total library, I've picked out these books to reflect his life and interests, and as you can see, they were wide and varied.